Welcome to inductive and deductive reasoning. First off, inductive reasoning is based off patterns, whereas deductive reasoning is a logical process based off fact. So a couple examples of inductive reasoning. We have a pattern here, 3, 9, 27, 81. Each time it's being multiplied by 3. So each term is 3 times the previous term. So 81 times 3 is 243, and 243 times 3 is 729. Our next example here is a circle with a triangle in it, a circle with a square in it, a circle with a pentagon in it. So the next one, notice it's increasing by a side each time, would be a circle with a hexagon and a circle with a heptagon inside. Okay. Deductive reasoning is all about if-then statements. A main type of if-then statement is called a conditional. It's read as P, if P then Q, or P implies Q. So our conditional statement is a hypothesis and a conclusion. If P, then Q. So if angle A is 15 degrees, then angle A is acute. If P, then Q. The converse is the reverse. We reverse the hypothesis and the conclusion. We exchange them. So our example is if A is acute, then A is 15. So if Q, then P. We reversed it. Our inverse negates our conditional statement. So in other words, it says if angle A is not 15, then angle A is not acute. We just put not in there. So if not P, then not Q. Contrapositive negates the converse. So if it is not acute, then it is not 15 degrees. If not Q, then not P. A biconditional states that if all statements are true, we can write a biconditional, which is just a single true statement that combines both a true conditional and converse. We join it by saying if and only if. So to write biconditional, the conditional itself is if the sum of the measure of two angles is 180, then the two angles form a straight angle. You first write the converse. If the two angles form a straight angle, then they have a sum of 180. We got to find out if that's true, and it is. Then we can write a biconditional. You take the conditional, you drop the if, drop the then. Instead of the then, you write if and only if. The sum of the measure of two angles is 180 if and only if the two angles form a straight angle. A couple of laws with deductive reasoning. You got the law of detachment, which states that if the hypothesis of a true conditional is true, then the conclusion is true. If I give you an if-then, if P then Q is true, if I tell you that P is true, therefore Q is true. So here, if a student gets an A on the final exam, then the student will pass the course. I tell you Felicia gets an A on the final exam, therefore Felicia will pass her history course. The law of syllogism states that allows you to state a conclusion from two conditional statements when the conclusion of one statement is the hypothesis of the other. In other words, if P then Q, if Q then P then R is true, therefore if P then R is true. Okay, so then notice the Q's line up there. So here, if a figure is a square, then the figure is a rectangle. If the figure is a rectangle, then the figure has four sides. I can omit the figure is a rectangle and write if a figure is a square, then the figure has four sides. All right, that's all there is to inductive and deductive reasoning. Good luck on the practice and application.